Buttons. He and his family consist of 2 kids. And judging our Shetland show is Bill Leib of Morris, Oklahoma. Bill is a chef instructor with Francis Tuttle Technology Center in Oklahoma City. Along with his wife, Nicole, and their son, Wyatt, they operate Leib Livestock, where they raise an elite set of Rambouillets for the show ring and commercial producers. Over the years, they have raised many breeds at a high level. Let's welcome all 3 of our judges this evening.
Nice single entry Corriedale yearling buck, really a big, large outline buck. Still really nice fleece when you go and part it, extremely uniform from shoulder to breech.
Placing on the Corriedale yearling ram class, first place goes to entry 2, Brady Craig, St. Joseph, Illinois, with Craig 2316. Corriedale exhibitors, please bring senior ram lambs into the ring. Senior ram lambs will be your next class. Then we'll show for senior champion and reserve senior champion. Shetland exhibitors, your next class is senior ram lambs, followed by early spring ram lambs, and then we'll have a class of late spring ram lambs, and then pair ram lambs.
Just 3 entries here in our Shetland yearling ram class, but I think 3 very high quality individuals. The ram I'm going to start with, to me, is the most structurally correct as we study him from the ground up. I really like his head when we get in front of him, take a look at him. We open that fleece. It's very uniform. It's very soft to the touch, has a lot of luster, and I think wins this class pretty handily. The ram here in second, another ram built similarly to the ram in first, but a ram that I maybe would just like to change his uniformity of his fleece just a little bit in comparison to the ram that beats him, but falls in there very nice. The third ram is the straightest top ram out here in the class, a ram that I'd just like to soften up his fleece a little bit just to get him any higher, but 3 very nice yearling rams. Let's give these exhibitors a round of applause.
Over in the Columbia ring, we've got a really outstanding set of yearling bucks, and it's always fun as you sort and evaluate the first class that you got a couple rams that you can tie to. I really like these first 2 bucks from the standpoint of breed character, body, some size, some grow, things that Columbia breed is known for. I really give the advantage to our lead buck in when we set him in motion. Extremely good in his feet and legs, the set to his rear hock, the stride to his rear leg. Over our second place buck is a huge advantage. I like the depth of rib, the extra depth of rib that he has, the length at top, a really complete buck from fore to rear. Ram we've gotten second, no doubt's a bigger frame sheep. I really appreciate that about him, the attractiveness that he has up through his front end. He's good at his shoulder, really extremely high-headed. As we set him in motion, not quite as sound and comfortable as we find in our class winning buck. Really good headed ram that we got standing here in third. You appreciate the levelness that he has from top to top, from over his top, from flank to flank. A buck that, as you compare him to the two placed above him, certainly doesn't have the depth and overall capacity that we see in the two rams preceding him in class. Really good in terms of his breed character, big-footed. When he gets in motion, I'd like to see him be a little bit easier striding and have more flex off those hind legs. Concluding the class with a big framed ram, a ram that I'd just like to see more physiologically mature at this age. Let's drop him in his front flank and give him more mass both outward and downward in terms of his shape to justify using him any higher. But four really good Columbia bucks. I like the first two in this class a bunch.
Next up for the Columbias will be
Pretty easy,
senior ram lambs.
Class winner here on the Corriedale ring. I really like this class winning buck. Extremely attractive from the side and yet got some added foot and structure to him. Really attractive from the profile, like I mentioned, though, is specifically great down his top line. Extra long body, deep sheep here to go second. I sure like the added dimension when you stand right behind him and handle him. I just like to stouten him up in his bone work just a notch. Maybe clean up his fleece from some of the weathering, but I think two high quality individuals.
Placing on the class of Shetland yearling rams, first place goes to entry number 1, Rachel Levitt, Parker City, Indiana, with caliber 0325. Second place to Rachel Levitt, Bear 57594. Third place to Marshall Springstube, West Stockbridge, Massachusetts, with entry number 5. Placing on the class of Columbia yearling rams, first to entry 1, Charles Worm, Lakefield, Minnesota, with Worm 302. Second place to entry 4, Isaiah Bauk, New York Mills, Minnesota, with Bauk 2316. Third to entry 3, Nash Arthur, Greenfield, Indiana. And 4 to entry 5, Riley Schmidt, Butler, Missouri. Placing on the senior ram lambs for the Corriedales, first to entry 3, Brady Craig, St. Joseph, Illinois, Craig 2333. Second to entry 5, Jackson Jeske, Lakeland, Florida, with Dewdrop Farm 23-91. For the Corriedales, our senior champion goes to entry 3, Brady Craig, St. Joseph, Illinois, with Craig 2333 out of the senior ram lamb class. The reserve senior champion was the first place yearling ram, entry number 2, Brady Craig, St. Joseph, Illinois, Craig 2316.
As we get over here into our Shetland Ram Lambs, I think some very high quality individuals. These first two rams are very close in my opinion. The ram I'm starting with, I just really like him in terms of his build from the ground up. He puts his feet out a little more square when we see him move about the ring, maybe takes a little nicer stride, a little stronger in his front pasterns than the ram in second. I think his tail's okay. I would like to maybe clean up the tail just a little bit, put a little more hair down to the tip, but I think he's good in his own right. Very nice fleece on this ram. Young ladies ram here in second, a ram I love when I get my hands on him, has a lot of natural dimension and levelness down his top. A very nice fleece, but I'd like to correct him off his Front pastern's a little more in comparison to the ram that wins the class, but two very nice Shetland rams to start our class. Ram here in third, another big volume kind of high production kind of ram. A ram that maybe doesn't stride out quite as nice as the two above him, doesn't maybe have quite the smoothness of blending up through the top of his shoulder blade, but a ram that fits in third nicely. Ram here in fourth, a ram that I'd just like to change his fleece a little bit, make it a little softer from front to rear, maybe give it a little more uniformity in comparison to the three rams above him. But again, a very nice class. Let's give these exhibitors a round of applause.
Columbia Fall Ram Lambs, good bucks from top to bottom in this class. I'm starting with the stoutest buck at the surface, a buck that I really like when you set him in motion, a sheep that's really big boned, long and level. I really, when I stand in front of him, I love the breed type about this sheep. He's a really good in terms of his color, in terms of his pinkness and nose. You step on the side of him, he's got a stud buck look. I like that about him a bunch. A ram that's the truest down his top of any buck in the class, and just I think puts all the positive pieces together that we're looking for in terms of bone growth and structural correctness. Really close decision between 2 and 3 here. I think this buck that we've gotten second is a better balanced buck and follows more the prototype of our class winning ram than does the ram in third. Once again, a really good headed ram, a buck that I appreciate that. If I was going to change him in any way, I'd like to drop him in his flank, both and open him up in his forerib a little bit compared to the bucks that are placed before and after him. The big pounds heavy buck, I think, is the ram here in third. A buck that I appreciate the density of this buck's fleece, the staple length of this fleece, but I think as I compare him to 1 and 2 in this class, he doesn't balance out quite as nicely, being a little bit bolder in his front end, lighter in his rear end, and I think he's the smallest at the surface of any of the 3 rams in the class. 3 useful, functional bucks. I like the buck at the top here a bunch.
Placing on the Columbia class of senior Ram Lambs, first place to entry 9, McCoy Thiessen, Sauk Center, Minnesota, with Thiessen 2339. Second place to entry 7, Courtney Copeland, Lewistown, Ohio, with Thiessen 2336. And third place to number 8, Charles Worm, Lakefield, Minnesota. Placing on the Shetland Senior Ram Lambs, first place goes to entry 6, Rachel Lovett, Parker City, Indiana, with Pelham 341. Second place to entry 7, Alexandra Springstube, West Stockbridge, Massachusetts, with Springstube Gary. Third place to entry 9, Rachel Lovett, Parker City, Indiana, and fourth place to entry 8, Emma O'Brien, Lebanon, Indiana.
Really high quality trio of Corriedale bucks out here. The one that I chose to start with, I think, is just the sheep with a little more mass and structure. He's the bigger footed ram in direct relation to our sheep in second. I really like his added power and dimension and his skeleton width as well. And when this buck stops and stands, I think still really attractive in his look. Buck that we've got here in second is obviously the large outlined ram of the group, extremely long bodied. Just like to see him a little more relaxed in his top line. And then the ram we're going to round the class out with, extremely big-footed and stout-featured sheep. It's just when you get right on top of him, he's too closed up underneath for me.
As we get into our spring ram lambs here in the Shetland ring, a ram that wins this class, I think wins this class pretty handily. A ram that you really appreciate in terms of his build from the ground up. You get over top of him, he has a lot of natural dimension and rib shape to him. Then we get into his fleece, and I think he's got a very nice fleece from front to rear. Moves about the ring freer and truer than the other two rams in this class, and I think that's what really separates him here this evening. Ram here in second, a ram I really like in terms of his top shape. This ram actually has a fair amount of muscle shape when you get over his loin edge in comparison to the two rams in this class. But a ram I'd just like to maybe make him a little better off those front legs a little bit, maybe get him tracking a little more true compared to the ram that wins this class. Ram here in third, certainly a high volume ram, a ram that I would just really like to give his fleece a little more softness. His fleece just handles a little more dry to me here this evening to move him up any higher, but three very high quality rams. Let's give these exhibitors a round of applause.
Over on the Columbia side of things, I'm really happy with the senior exhibits we've got out here for your champion drive. I think if you know me, you know I like sheep that are complete, that are big, that are rugged. I think the traits that the champion and reserve bring to the ring or to this breed can move this breed forward in terms of not only power, growth, and capacity, but also some really good fleeces. So with that, I'll go out and select your champion and reserve, senior champion Columbia Ram.
For the Columbias, our senior champion ram goes to the first place yearling ram as entry number 1, Charles Worm, Lakefield, Minnesota with Worm 302. The reserve senior champion was our senior ram lamb, entry 9, McCoy Thiessen, Sauk Center, Minnesota, Thiessen 2339. Placing on the Corriedale Intermediate Ram Lamb class, first place to entry 12, Zachary Claycomb, Everett, Pennsylvania with ZC24-01. Second place to entry 57, Brady Craig, St. Joseph, Illinois with Craig 2402. Third place to entry number 11, Camden Hebertshausen, Republic, Ohio. Placing on the Shetland class of early spring ram lambs, first to entry 11, Emma O'Brien, Lebanon, Indiana, with Caldeverde 1161. Second place to entry 10, Rachel Levitt, Parker City, Indiana, with Carson 349. Third place to Rachel Levitt, entry number 12, Parker City, Indiana.
We got two really exceptional Columbia Rams in this class. I prefer the bigger outline buck, the buck that stands on more substance of bone. I like the future growth potential and additional size that we get from him. A sheep that when you set him in motion around the ring, he's more comfortable, I believe, on his hind legs. The buck in second, I love how deep-bodied he is. He's a softer fleece buck, a better fleece buck that's more uniform from front to rear. As I study him in motion in comparison to the one that wins the class, I'd like to just give him more comfort on those hind wheels, set him down square, travel a little bit better off those rear hocks. Really attractive buck that we've got here in third. Jacked up through his front end, shallow in his chest, really cool in terms of his look. But in my opinion, compared to the two bucks in front of him, he's just shorter from flank to flank, and we get in and study that fleece. I think there's just a little bit too much belly wool to run him up any higher in a very competitive class at Columbia Rams. Like the first two bucks that lead off this class, congratulations to the exhibitors.
As we get over here into our late spring ram lambs in the Shetland show, again, another high quality group of rams. The ram I'm starting with is just super dimensional as we study him. He's the widest from hip hooks to pins as we get out here. A ram that moves about the ring good enough for me to get him into the first hole. I really like the fleece on this ram, super amount of luster as we get down in there. I think he gets up to the first place very, very handily. Ram here in second, a ram again, has a lot of top shape and natural dimension to him. A ram that maybe's given up some length to that ram in first. But again, a very nice kind of fleece ram. I really appreciate the head on this ram, and I think fits into second hole quite nice. Ram here in third, very much similar to the ram in second, just maybe breaks a little more right behind the shoulder compared to that ram right above him. A ram that you really appreciate in terms of how he puts those rear wheels to the ground when we see him move about the ring. But just needs to be a little more level and square out his right behind his shoulder to compete with the two above him. Ram here in fourth, a ram that does have a lot of natural dimension. However, as we see him put him into motion, he just gets a little off on those rear wheels compared to the three rams above him here today. A ram I'd maybe like to give him a little more natural extension up through that front end. A ram that has an adequate fleece as well. Ram here in fifth, a ram you really appreciate in terms of his style when you see him on the profile, but a ram whose fleece may be getting a little more matter in it than I'd like to see. I'd maybe like to see it a little cleaner, a little more shine to that fleece. But again, a very nice class of late ram lambs. Let's give these exhibitors a round of applause.
As we wrap up the Corriedale Ram show, I think we've got a pretty nice pair to sort up. The sheep that I chose to win with, really masculine and muscular in his kind, really a wide-built sheep, still really long profiling, a sheep that's your uniform in his fleece as well. Maybe the best bodied sheep is here in second, extremely long-bodied, great rib shape in that ram as well, plenty of levelness and correctness down his top line. For me, though, he just needs to be stouter in his bone work. I think really interesting dual-purpose ram here in third. I really like his muscularity and his added stoutness. He's a sheep that I sure think has plenty of fleece quality as well. Great type on this ram. I'd just like to see him move around the ring more comfortable off the rear portion of his skeleton. Attractive profiling ram here in fourth, really neat and clean at the point of his shoulder, really deep and uniform in his body depth. Just like to open him up underneath a little bit with more skeletal width. And then actually the smallest ram of the drive is here in fifth, but one that I think is more correct than quite a few down the line. He's really up on his toes and good and flexible off both ends. He just really gets out horsed today.
Placing on the early junior Ram Lamb class for the Columbia's first place to entry number 13, McCoy Thiessen, Sauk Center, Minnesota, with Thiessen 24:05. Second place to 14, Isaiah Bauk, New York Mills, Minnesota, Bauk 24:11. Third place to entry 12, Nash Arthur, Greenfield, Indiana. Placing on the late spring Ram Lambs for the Shetlands, first place to entry 15, Sherry Eldridge, Harold, California, with AGE 7. Second place to entry 13, Rachel Lovett, Parker City, Indiana, with Andre 363. Third place to entry 14, Rachel Levitt, Parker City, Indiana. Fourth to entry 16, Emma O'Brien, Lebanon, Indiana. And fifth place to entry 17, Evelyn Springstube, West Stockbridge, Massachusetts. Placing on the Shetland pair Ram Lamb class, first place goes to entry number 18, Rachel Levitt, Parker City, Indiana. Second place to entry 19, Emma O'Brien, Lebanon, Indiana.
As we get out here to select our champion and reserve champion Shetland Ram, I'm very happy with the 8 individuals we have out here. I think they all have some quality within their breed. I think the breed type on these Rams are all really good, but in my mind, there's 2 that just kind of stick out to me, and at this point, I'll go out and congratulate our champion and reserve, but let's give these exhibitors a big round of applause.
Placing on the Corriedale Junior Ram Lamb class, first place goes to entry 15, Emma Peters for Sales, Ohio, with Peters 2404. Second place to entry 18, Brady Craig, St. Joseph, Illinois, with Craig 2412. Third place to entry 17, Zachary Claycomb, Everett, Pennsylvania. Fourth place to entry number 20, Brady Craig, St. Joseph, Illinois. 5 to entry 22, Zachary Claycomb, Everett, Pennsylvania. 6 to entry 7, Andrew Freeman. 7th place to entry number 14, Jonah Fries, New Salem, North Dakota. 8 to entry 13, Devin Sachs, Greenville, Ohio. 9 to entry 16, Everett Sachs. And 10th place to entry 19, Jonah Fries, New Salem, North Dakota. For our Shetlands, our champion ram went to the first place late spring ram lamb, Sherry Eldridge, Harold, California, with AGE 7. The reserve champion was first in the early spring ram lamb class, entry 11, Emma O'Brien, Lebanon, Indiana, with Cabo Verde.
February Columbia bucks. I think we got a really logical place to start here. This buck just has a tremendous stud buck presence. I like the width that he has through his chest for, I like the depth that he has through his side. The depth and width of skull of this buck is fairly impressive. A sheep that you handle him from a fleece perspective, yeah, you'd make him a notch finer at the shoulder, but I like the uniformity of fleece, the density of fleece, the softness of handle of fleece that this ram has. Really upstanding buck is a buck in second. Somebody in the show world might prefer his front end and design a little bit more. He's got a lot of future growth potential in him. I'd like to make him a notch longer, and when I study him from behind, I'd like to open him up in his rib and make him wider base, but extremely attractive, good in terms of his breed character, really good kind of functional Columbia buck. Big, deep, bodied ram, pounds heavy buck in third, a buck that the Columbia breed is founded upon to compete with those white or those black-faced breeds on the range to add more pounds of lambs when they come off in the fall. This buck will do that. However, when I set him in motion, he just doesn't balance up for me as well. He's not as good out over his hip. He's not as thick and full through the center and lower portion of his leg as compared to 1 and 2 in this class. If we could change him in that way, we could move him up in class today. I like the depth, I like the heaviness, the weight that buck brings to the table as he comes across the scale. Young ladies, ram here in fourth is no slouch. This is a good, complete ram. Really good in his fleece, uniform from shoulder to britch, uniform from top to bottom, has a lot of density to it. In comparison to the three preceding him in class, he's not as pounds heavy, he's not as wide-based, and when we set him in motion, he wants to get a little higher centered, not as relaxed and comfortable on the go as 1, 2, and 3. Nice set of bucks from top to bottom. I like this February class a bunch.
We now need to announce our junior champion for the Corriedales. And our junior champion ram went to the first place junior ram lamb, entry number 15, Emma Peters, Versailles, Ohio, with Peters 2404. The reserve junior champion was our class winner from the intermediate ram lamb class, entry 12, Zachary Claycomb, Everett, Pennsylvania, with ZC 2401. The overall grand champion went to our senior champion, which was out of the senior ram lamb class, Brady Craig, St. Joseph, Illinois, on Craig 2333. The overall reserve grand champion was our junior champion from the junior ram lamb class, entry 15, Emma Peters, Versailles, Ohio, with Peters 2404. Placing on the Columbia class of late junior ram lambs, first to entry 18, Isaiah Bauk, New York Mills, Minnesota, with Bauk 2424. Second place to entry 23, Isaiah Bauk, New York Mills, Minnesota with Bauk 24-27. 3 to entry 15, Courtney Copeland, Lewistown, Ohio, and 4 to entry 16, Adriana Finley, Asheville, Ohio. Placing on the pair ram lamb class, first place goes to entry 22, McCoy Thiessen, Sauk Center, Minnesota. Second to entry 23, Isaiah Bauk, New York Mills, Minnesota. And third to entry 20, Courtney Copeland, Lewistown, Ohio.
For junior champion, I think we've got 4 really good rams out here, but 2 outstanding rams on the front side. I'm going to go with the January buck because I think that there's just more turn and shape to his top, a big top, level-made sheep. I really like the presence of the February buck we're going to use for reserve. Tremendous silhouette, good when you get him in motion. Nice pair, happy to see him back in overall drive.
For the Columbia, our junior champion was our class winner of the early junior ram lamb class, entry 13, McCoy Thiessen from Sauk Center, Minnesota. Thiessen 24:05. The reserve junior champion was entry 18 out of the late junior ram lamb class, Isaiah Bauk, New York Mills, Minnesota, with Bauk 24:24. Now showing for grand and reserve grand champion Columbia Ram.
5 extremely high quality Corriedale Rams ewes out here, and the first 2 yearling ewes I think sort up extremely quickly. A pair of females with some added dimension, some added shape, and some added power, and yet sure quality and uniform in their fleece. The class winner I thought was just a notch more uniform down low on her belly. Maybe the sheep that's just a little bit square out of her hip as well. Really similar built female here in second, extra long bodied. Sure like her added depth and uniformity, just like the square up out of her dock just a little bit. An extremely typey female here in third, one that I sure like for her breed character. Great fleeced ewe as well. Just at the top 5, she's probably the shortest coupled to the drive, but one that I sure appreciate for her basic build and breed type. The next 2 ewes I think are incredibly similar. Both ewes that are great bodied sheep, really good designed up through their front end, but both of those ewes when they get out and go just get too short stepping off both ends of their skeleton.
On this Columbia side of the equation, we're going to stick with the 2 senior Rams for overall champion and reserve. I just love the depth of rib, the squareness and shape of rib that this yearling buck has, the base width he comes at you and goes away with. Big, powerful kind of sheep. And then we're going to reach back and grab that senior Ram lamb. Presence, bone, power, look. Good positive things. Both bucks, I think, can contribute a lot to this breed moving forward. Really like these buck lambs. They'll be back to garner some attention next year. I think the quality on the Ram side was really deep in the Columbia show today.
Grand champion Columbia Ram goes to the senior champion Ram out of the yearling Ram class, Charles Worm, Lakefield, Minnesota, Worm 302. The reserve grand champion goes to entry 9, our reserve senior champion out of the senior Ram Lamb class, McCoy Thiessen, Sauk Center, Minnesota, Thiessen 2339.
Okay, as we get over here into our Shetland yearling ewes, certainly there's some variety in type and kind out here, and I kind of sorted them in terms of what I consider overall quality. The ewe we're starting with is the big volume ewe of this class. You get your hands on her. She's super dimensional down her top, has a lot of natural rib shape to her, yet she lays in pretty good over those shoulders. You get into her fleece. I really like her fleece from front to rear. It's very nice. If anything, I'd maybe like to square her up a little bit out through the hip, but I think she gets to the top, in my mind, pretty handily. You here in second, a ewe you just love when you see her on the profile. You like her elegance, her femininity, her design. A ewe that's maybe given up a little in staple, maybe was shorn a little earlier this year. I just wish there was a little more fleece to dig into, but a ewe, just from a structural and design standpoint, you just have to admire, and I think that's what works her into second. You here in third, a ewe that you really appreciate her natural base width as you see her move about the ring, a ewe that takes a nice big stride. Just need to uniform up that fleece a little bit, maybe give it a little more character from front to rear. It's maybe like it gotten into a little weather or something. Just like to clean that up on her, and if we do, I think she moves up this class pretty quick. Ewe here in fourth, ewe that if you just look from the side, very similar to the ewe in first. A ewe that doesn't have quite the extension, quite the femininity that that first place ewe does. A ewe that doesn't have quite the same fleece quality as the two ewes above her, and I think that's why she fits into fourth hole. Ewe here in fifth, a ewe that you really appreciate up through her front. You like her through her chest floor. A ewe that I'd just like to change her fleece a little bit, give her a little more character, a little more luster to that fleece as we break it open. But again, a ewe you just really appreciate in that front 1/3 of her body. As we get on down the line, we have a few ewes that you really appreciate, some different presentation styles, some different fleece qualities. But again, a heck of a class of Shetland yearling ewes. Let's give these exhibitors a round of applause.
Placing on the Corriedale Yearling U class, first place goes to entry number 42, Emma Peters for Sales, Ohio, with Peters 2311. Second place to entry 40, Brady Craig, St. Joseph, Illinois, with Craig 2311. Third to Zachary Claycomb of Everett, Pennsylvania, on entry 41. Fourth place to entry number 36, Jonah Fries, New Salem, North Dakota. Emma Peters for Sales, Ohio. Sixth place to entry 39, Zachary Claycomb, Everett, Pennsylvania. 7 to 38, Brady Craig, St. Joseph, Illinois. Eighth place to entry number 35, Jonah Fries, New Salem, North Dakota. 9 to entry 31, Addie French, Wakeman, Ohio. And 10 to entry 32, Carter Hebertshausen, Republic, Ohio. Placing on the Corriedale pair of Yearling U class, first to entry 45, Emma Peters for Sales, Ohio. Second to 46, Brady Craig, St. Joseph, Illinois. Third to Zachary Claycomb, Everett, Pennsylvania. And 4 to Jonah Fries, New Salem, North Dakota. Placing on the Shetland Yearling U class, first place to entry 26, Rachel Levitt, Parker City, Indiana, with Prius 308. Second place to entry number 22, Cecilia Parsons, Ducar, California, with CAP 204. Third to 23, Emma O'Brien, Lebanon, Indiana. 4 to 27, Rachel Levitt, Parker City, Indiana. 5 to 25, Cecilia Parsons, Ducar, California. Sixth place to entry 28, Hazel Gloud, Putnam, Connecticut. Seventh place to 24, Emma O'Brien, Lebanon, Indiana. 8 to 29, Evelyn Springstube, West Stockbridge, Massachusetts. 9 to entry number 30, Amy Springstube, West Stockbridge, Massachusetts.
challenging set of Corriedale fall ewe lambs out here. The one that I chose to start with is the one that I think when she's just standing there is the most attractive in her design. She's easily the levelest down her top line. Got some added mass and dimension through her center body as well, especially square out of her dock when compared to anything else in the class. When she gets out and goes, I would like to see her handle the rear portion of her skeleton a notch more correctly, but still I think when that female's just standing there, she's a nice place to start. Really a big-ribbed, massive female here in second, probably the heaviest muscled ewe of the drive, and without a doubt the best fleeced one as well. When you open it easily, the brightest and most uniform. I think a nice female. To me, she's just a little bit short coupled. Really a large outline female here in third, one that you sure have to appreciate for that added frame and extension. For me, she's just a little bit freaky. The next ewe in line is another one that really runs uphill, extra long-bodied as well. I just like to see her with a little more skeletal mass. And then a really neat made ewe here to round out the top five. I sure like her when they get out and goes, but she just gets a little bit out-horsed here today.
Just three Shetland fall ewe lambs out here, but I think three fall ewe lambs that are all very high quality in terms of the pieces they bring to us. Starting with the smallest ewe in the class here, you just really love in terms of her design. She's the most correct off her front and rear legs as we see him move about the ring. But where this ewe really gets to the top is when you open up that fleece. I just really love the fleece on this ewe. Super bright, super soft. I really appreciate her breed type up about her head as well. I think this ewe's comes to the top quite nice. Ewe here in second, a ewe you really appreciate her dimension, a ewe that's big rib, big topped, a ewe that I just wish was maybe a little squarer off her front and rear wheels a little bit, maybe clean her up through her chest floor a little bit, but a ewe you just really appreciate the overall volume and production. Ewe here in third, again, another kind of big-bodied ewe, a ewe that certainly doesn't want to be out here, but I'd really like to lay her in across the shoulder blade a little better, square her up out through the hip in terms of the two above her, maybe clean up that fleece compared to the two above her a little bit, but three very nice fall ewe lambs. Let's give these exhibitors a round of applause.
Placing on the Corriedale Senior Ewe Lamb class, first place to entry 52, Emma Peters for Sales, Ohio with Peters 23-12. Second place to entry 49, Zachary Claycomb, Everett, Pennsylvania with Bant 12.92. Third place to 48, Brady Craig, St. Joseph, Illinois, 4-47, Brady Craig. Fifth place to entry number 53, Hudson Hortz, Zephyr, Texas. Sixth place to 51, Addie French, Wakeman, Ohio. And seventh place to entry 50, Brooke Hershey, Wooster, Ohio. Placing on the Senior Ewe Lambs for the Shetlands, first place to entry 35, Cecilia Parsons, Ducar, California with CAP 12. Second place to entry 36, Rachel Levitt, Parker City, Indiana with PEP 320. And third to entry 34, Rachel Levitt, Parker City, Indiana.
As we get into our early ewe lambs over here on the Shetland side, these top three, and more specifically these top two, are just, I think, very, very high quality individuals. The ewe I'm starting with, just the most structurally designed kind of sheep in this class. You really appreciate the way her shoulders tie into the top of her spine. And then a ewe that when you split open that fleece, just a beautiful fleece on this ewe from front to rear. If I were to change her, I'd just maybe like to give her a little more rib shape. The ewe in second has that rib shape, has that body dimension. A ewe that maybe doesn't tie in quite as nice up through her front end. But again, another ewe with a really, really nice fleece. These two I've gone back and forth with here a few different times, but I think both very, very high quality. Ewe here in third, a ewe you just love from the profile. A ewe that if I could just maybe change her fleece, especially right up over that shoulder a little bit, give her a little more uniformity, I think she plays with these top two pretty easily, but I think third's a great spot for her. You here in fourth, a ewe you appreciate in terms of her overall dimension when we view her from the side, a ewe that certainly shows us lots of productivity. A ewe I'd just maybe like to change her fleece a little compared to the three ewes above her, maybe square her up out through that hip compared to the three ewes above her, but again, very nice, very productive kind of ewe. Ewe here in fifth, a ewe you really like in terms of her femininity up through her front end, a ewe that maybe just gets a little too short-sided for me, a ewe I'd maybe like to level her out over the hip, maybe give her fleece a little more shine, a little more luster. The ewe we round out the class with, the ewe you really appreciate in terms of her center body dimension, but a ewe that just gets a little lower fronted, especially on the move. I'd just like to level her up, bring that chest floor up a little bit. But again, a very nice class of early Shetland ewe lambs. Let's give these exhibitors a round of applause.
I think a really logical place to start over here in the Corriedale ring. I think a great dual purpose sheep in terms of having some skeletal mass and dimension and still quality fleece. I think an awfully easy place to start. Next to you in line is an awfully long-bodied extended female, probably going to make the largest outlined yearling. To me, she just needs more rear rib and flank to go with that added frame, but still one that you sure have to appreciate for that added extension. Ewe that we have here in third is one that I do think has more rib shape, more center body, but she to me needs to be changed when she's on the go. To me, she's too tight in her spine and gets under herself some with the hind portion of her skeleton. Extremely level designed here in fourth, one that I really like for added length and extension. If you could just strengthen her up on her rear pastern some, I think that'd be an awfully competitive female in this drive. And then the real type ewe we're going to round the top five out with. I really like her added dimension and her breed character. Just like to square up out of her dock just a little bit and maybe stretch her out through her front end. But I think five high quality females.
Placing on the Shetland class of early spring ewe lambs, first place goes to entry 37, Sherry Eldridge, Harold, California, with AGE 6. Second place to entry number 42, Rachel Lovett, Parker City, Indiana, with Batista 328. Third to entry 41, Emma O'Brien, Lebanon, Indiana. 4 to entry number 39, Rachel Lovett, Parker City, Indiana. 5 to entry number 38, Bailey Hishbrook, Sterling, Connecticut. And 6 to entry number 40, Bailey Hirschbrook, Sterling, Connecticut. Placing on the intermediate ewe lambs for the National Corriedale Show. First place goes to entry number 60, Emma Peters, Versailles, Ohio, with Peters 2400. Second place to entry number 56, Brady Craig, St. Joseph, Illinois, with Craig 2401. Third place to entry 62, Jonah Fries, New Salem, North Dakota. Fourth place to entry number 64, Jonah Fries, New Salem, North Dakota. Fifth to entry 58, Courtney Copeland, Lewistown, Ohio. 6 to entry 61, Carter Hebertshausen, Republic, Ohio. And 7 to entry 63, Jackson Jeske, Lakeland, Florida.
If you can't get excited about this Columbia Yearling U class, you don't need to be sorting critters. This is a really, really deep class. What you see from the sidelines, I will guarantee you, is not what you see on the sheep. The difference in fleece length and staple length in these 15 Yearling U's is about as much variation as I've seen in a class ever. But that doesn't take away from the quality of these females. I think they have the ability to really make a positive impact on the breed. I like that breed character about this ewe's head. I don't think you can make them any better in terms of her head. Her presence from a side profile is impressive. This ewe is really deep and uniform in her underline from fore to rear. She's got an extremely soft, uniform fleece from front to rear. My only criticism is I'd like to give her more set to her hind legs. She handles it extremely well. I don't think it's going to affect longevity, but from a phenotypic side profile view, I'd like to give her more set to her rear hock. Beautiful sheep. We're going to run with her today. I think she's sound enough to stay around and make an impact on this breed. These next two ewes look small in class. I guarantee you they aren't the biggest, but if you've ever seen me judge before, I could care less about frame size if they're not sound. These sheep are extremely sound, extremely straight topped, really uniform in their fleece. The density of the fleeces on the ewes in second and third is very, very impressive. They're going to shear a lot of pounds of very uniform 60s, 58s fleeces. And then you stand in front of both these females, extremely good about their breed type. Very deep in their skull, wide in their skull when you look at them, but very good at the point of the shoulders. Notice how the neck comes out of the neck-shoulder juncture on these ewes. Right. They open up into a big old wide rib. Deep, broody females that are going to be long-lived. And that's been one of the criticisms of this breed over the last 15 to 20 years. They don't like to live, especially on forage. These kinds are going to work. They're sexy enough for the show ring. I like 2 and 3. The advantage that I like from 2 over 3, when I step behind her, she opens up at the top of her rib. You study her as she gets away from you, she's opened up more at the bottom of her rib. She's really, really sound on her feet and legs. I like her in second hole, a really, really complete female. The ewe in third probably has maybe a little bit more size, frame size, if you will. Don't like her off her hind legs as good as 2, but she fits right into third spot. The ewe that maybe I thought I'd use a little bit higher in this class is the ewe that we've gotten 4. A big, rugged, big-boned ewe that's wide base from fore to rear, maybe carrying a lot more fleece than 2 and 3, but I still like the base width, the power, the way this ewe runs uphill, the structural integrity she has through the front 3/4 of her skeleton. When we set her in motion, at times I think it's a little bit of a fight because her hock's right, but she doesn't like to stride off her rear legs as good as 2 and 3, so we're going to leave her in 4 today in what I think is a very competitive class. Long, deep, and square, once again, is the ewe that we've got in 5th hole. I really, really like the broodiness of this female, the attractiveness. She's not quite as good right behind her shoulders as we've got in 2, 3, and 4. And when you set her in motion, she gets a little bit closer at her hocks. But a well-presented, really attractive, very complete Columbia female. I like her quite a bit. Really nice ewe in 6th hole. This ewe's probably one of the more uniform fleeced ewes from fore to rear. Coarser than the 4 or 5 above her? Absolutely. Tremendously long staple, well within the range of the breed. When you set her in motion, she wants to lock her hocks a little bit. I like the size of this ewe. I like the length of this ewe. I felt we needed to leave her in the top 6. Just like to make her a little sounder as we bring her off of her hind wheels. A very good class of Columbia Yearling ewes. got me kind of excited about judging this breed.
Over here on the Shetland side, we're into our late spring ewe lamb class. Again, a very nice group of ewes from top to bottom. These top two ewes, I really like a lot of things they bring to the table. The ewe I'm starting with, just a little better from the ground up in terms of squareness and set to those rear legs than we see in the ewe in second. Both of these ewes have really nice fleeces. You get your hands on these ewes, they have some turn to their rib, they have some dimension down their top. The ewe in first, I think, just ties together a little neater than the ewe in second. Ewe in second, if we could just square her up out through that hip, make her rear legs a little square, especially on the move, I think she could give this first place ewe a run for their money, but two very high quality kind of individuals. Ewe here in third, a ewe you really like on the profile, you really like how this young lady gets her presented. A ewe that, as I get into her, just doesn't have the natural body dimension, the spring of rib, the dimension down her top that we see in the two ewes above her, but a ewe you really appreciate in terms of her structural soundness, a ewe you really like when you crack open that fleece. Ewe here in fourth, a ewe I'd like to bring her up through her chest floor and give her a little more extension up through that front end. A ewe that you like the fleece on this ewe, you maybe like to see it a little more uniform in terms of front to rear, but a ewe that's really nice in her own right, I think is going to be a very productive kind of female. Ewe in fifth is just a big body brood kind of ewe. A ewe that I just need to see her travel a little better when she moves about the ring compared to the four above her. But again, a super nice class of late Shetland ewe lambs. Let's give these exhibitors a round of applause.
As we round out the Corriedale show, I think an awfully nice female to start with, one that sure runs uphill, great in her rib shape, great in her body depth uniformity, still really long-bodied and level out of her hip. And when she gets out and goes, she's probably the most flexible of any out here in the drive. I think an awfully nice female to start with. Here in second, maybe a notch larger footed female, one that I sure like for that added breed type that she has as well. Great fleeced. If we could just give that ewe a little bit more oomph through the center portion of her body, maybe fill her back through her rear rib and flank, I think she'd be an awfully tough one to get around. But man, what a great built young ewe lamb. Next in line, we've got one that's probably the neatest up through her front end. She's so good in the way her neck ties into the top of her shoulder. She's exceptionally deep from forerib to flank as well, just more refined in her bone work for me. Ewe that we're going to put here in fourth, probably the heavyweight ewe of the drive, really wide-chested and a lot of dimension from behind. It's just when you get off to the side of that sheep, she's more pronounced through her breastplate, and she's one that's too deep in her chest in relation to her flank for me. And then the ewe we're going to round the top five out with, one that initially thought I'd run with, really a stout featured female with plenty of dimension. When that one gets out and goes, though, she's just too straight off both ends of her skeleton and too short stepping.
Placing on the late spring ewe lamb class for the Shetlands, first place goes to entry 45, Sherry Eldridge, Harold, California with AGE 8. Second place to entry 44, Rachel Levitt, Parker City, Indiana with Elsa 332. Third place to entry number 47, Evelyn Springstube, West Stockbridge, Massachusetts. 4 to 46, Emma O'Brien, Lebanon, Indiana. 5 to entry number 43, Rachel Levitt, Parker City, Indiana. Placing on the class of yearling ewes for the Columbia show, first place goes to entry 43, Isaiah Bauk, New York Mills, Minnesota with Bauk 2347. Second place to 36, Ella Brown, Berthold, North Dakota with Hendricks 2156. Third place to entry 40, Cooper Breedall, Berthold, North Dakota. Fourth place to entry number 30, Jackson Thiessen, Alden, Iowa. 5 to entry 41 or 41, Cashton Breedall, Berthold, North Dakota. Sixth place to 42, Mike Minter, Pemberville, Ohio. Seventh place to 39, Courtney Copeland, Lewistown, Ohio. Eighth place to 28, Charles Worm, Lakefield, Minnesota. 9 to entry 35, Isaiah Bach, New York Mills, Minnesota. 10th place to entry number 34, Courtney Copeland, Lewistown, Ohio. Placing on the pair of yearling ewes for the Columbias, first to entry 48, Isaiah Bauk, New York Mills, Minnesota. Second to 47, Courtney Copeland, Lewistown, Ohio. Charles Worm, Lakefield, Schmidt, Butler, Missouri. Placing on the Corriedale Junior Ewe Lamb class, first to entry 73, Brady Craig, St. Joseph, Illinois, with Craig 24-16. Second to entry 74, Zachary Claycomb, Everett, Pennsylvania, with ZC 24-12. Third place to entry 70, Jonah Fries, New Salem, North Dakota. 4 to entry 65, Emma Peters, Versailles, Ohio. 5 to entry 66, Claire Sachs, Greenville, Ohio. 6th place to 75, Zachary Claycomb, Everett, Pennsylvania. 7 to 67, Andrew Freehand, Bradner, Ohio. 8th place to entry 71, Brady Craig, St. Joseph, Illinois. 9 to entry 72, Brooke Hershey, Worcester, Ohio. And 10 to entry 68, Camden Hebertshausen, Republic, Ohio. Placing on the Shetland class of Shetland class of pair of ewe lambs, first place goes to entry 50, Sherry Eldridge, Harold, California. Second to entry 49, Rachel Lovett. Third to entry 51, Emma O'Brien, Lebanon, Indiana. 4 to Bailey Hirschbach, Sterling, Connecticut.
As we bring these 8 individuals out here for our champion and reserve champion Shetland ewe, I think we have 8 super high quality individuals out here, all ewes that are very, very well made in terms of their design. Yet when you crack open those fleeces, they have very nice fleeces. I think this group of females could go on and certainly produce a lot of great sheep for these exhibitors. And at this point, I just want to say it's been my honor to judge the Shetland show here again this year. Maybe not huge in numbers, but I think the quality's been extremely good here this evening. And at this point, I won't talk anymore. I'll go out and select your champion and reserve, but let's give all these Shetland exhibitors a big round of applause.
On the Corriedale side of the ring, our junior champion ewe went to our first place junior ewe lamb, entry 73, Brady Craig, St. Joseph, Illinois, with Craig 24-16. The reserve junior champion was from the intermediate ewe lamb class, entry number 60, Emma Peters, Versailles, Ohio, with Peters 2400. Our champion ewe for the Shetland show came from the late spring ewe lamb class, entry 45, Sherry Eldridge, Harold, California, with AGE 8. The reserve champion ewe was second in that late spring ewe lamb class, entry 44, Rachel Lovett, Parker City, Indiana, with Eliza, 3-3-2. Placing on the Corriedale pair of ewe lamb class, first place to entry 78, Brady Craig, St. Joseph, Illinois. Second to entry 79, Emma Peters, Versailles, Ohio. Third to 82, Zachary Claycomb, Everett, Pennsylvania. 4 to entry 80, Jonah Fries, New Salem, North Dakota. And 5 to entry 81, Brooke Hershey, Wooster, Ohio. For the Corriedale show, your grand champion ewe was the senior champion ewe, the Yearling ewe. Entry number 42, Emma Peters, Versailles, Ohio, with Peters 2311. The reserve grand champion ewe was our junior champion ewe. Out of the junior ewe lamb class, entry 73, Brady Craig, St. Joseph, Illinois, with Craig 2416.
This fall Yearling was a challenge one for me to put together. The one thing I'm confident about, I like where I landed to win this class. I like the balance, the completeness, the design of this ewe. She's my speed in terms of her chest floor, in terms of her rear flank, and when you step behind her, you really like the outward turn to her rib, right up over her rack, and that width and capacity continues out over the top of her hip, and she's really well laid in the set to her rear hock. I'll be the first to admit, she's also the coarsest fleeced ewe, if not in the top 5 in the entire class. She's on the bottom side of the grade, I think certainly within grade. I like the rib, I like the capacity. I think the fleshing ability and longevity of this female is going to add a lot to the Columbia breed. The really youthful appearing ewe in the class is the ewe that we got in second. She hit me hard when she came into the ring. I like the angle to this ewe's shoulder. I like the uniform depth of her underline, much like I find in the class winning female. When you set her in motion, she's just like one. She's sound, she gets around the ring, she's flexible in her spine. Those two, I think, become a match pair. The challenge for me is the ewe that we've got in third. I like this ewe when you just park her and she cooperates and she's not fighting. She has a tendency to get a little high-centered when she gets on the go, and I'd like to give her more width and expansion out over her hip. It's extremely soft handling in her fleece, long in her staple, big in her lock size, a great Columbia fleece to match her good Columbia breed character. I'd just like to make her sounder in the back half of her to move her up any higher in the class. The ewe that we've gotten fourth, I love the extension of this female, the depth of side. When I set her in motion, she's the most pinched from her hooks to her pins. She's the closest at her hocks. She needs to travel wider for me to move her up any higher. But I like her when she parked. She's big, she's broody. I think if you get her bred right with a buck with a really good hind leg, I think you can make a positive impact. Extremely attractive ewes, the female we've gotten 5. I like the way that she's put together. She's fit extremely well, as all these are. She gets too shallow in her flank, and when I set her in motion, I'd like to see more flex to her rear hock to move her up any higher. One of the best fleece females in the class from front to rear is the ewe that we've gotten 5. Need to see more of her and a sounder version of her to move her any higher. Good class. Took me a while to pick them apart, but I like the line that we ended up on here today.
For your Shetland show, placing on the best hoof or fleece on hoof, the winner was Sherry Eldridge with AGE 7. Sherry is from Harold, California. And placing on the flock class, first place in the flock to Emma O'Brien, to Rachel Levitt, Parker City, Indiana. Second to Emma O'Brien, Lebanon, Indiana. And our premier exhibitor for the Shetland show is Rachel Levitt of Parker City, Indiana. That does conclude our Shetland show. Our judge has been Bill Leib. Corriedale best headed goes to entry number 9, Jonah Fries, with a January ewe lamb. Jonah Fries from New Salem, North Dakota. Fries 2402. Placing on the Columbia Senior U Lamb class, first place went to Courtney Copeland, Lewistown, Ohio, with C. Copeland 0519. Second place to entry 60, Morgan Davis, Hinckley, Illinois, with Worm 431.
I really enjoyed putting a line on your senior Columbia females. Can't wait to get into the juniors. A really, really strong set here. I'm going to stick with the two seniors for champion and reserve. I really like the different impacts that these two females can have on the breed. These fallers, I think they're really good. Their day will come. Today, we're going to go with the seniors for champion and reserve. See you back in overall.
Senior champion U for the Columbias goes to the first and second place Yearling U's. For our senior champion is entry 43, Isaiah Bach, New York Mills, Minnesota, about 23:47. The reserve senior champion is entry 36, Ella Brown, Berthold, North Dakota, with Hendricks 21:56. Going back to those senior U Lamb placings for the Columbias, third place went to entry 57, Charles Worm, Lakefield, Minnesota. Fourth place to 59, Charles Worm, Lakefield, Minnesota. Fifth place to 49, Isaiah Bauk, New York Mills, Minnesota. Sixth place to entry 55, Jackson Thiessen, Alden, Iowa. 7 to 56, Morgan Davis, Hinckley, Illinois. Eighth place to 52, Addison Bussinger, Bluffton, Ohio. 9 to 58, Paige Anderson, Boney Lake, Washington. And 10 to 51, Haley Luz, Montague, California. Best Fleece Corriedale goes to Zachary Claycomb of Everett, Pennsylvania, with Bant 1292, a fall ewe lamb. Placing on the National Corriedale Flock class, first in the flock and also winner of the Premier Exhibitor Award is Brady Craig, St. Joseph, Illinois. Second, Emma Peters, Versailles, Ohio. Third, Zachary Claycomb, Everett, Pennsylvania. And four, Jonah Fries of North Dakota. That does conclude our National Corriedale show. Our judge has been John Merzinski.
Good class of Januaries here. I really think we've got a super complete correct you to win the class. Not only is she big scaled, deep ribbed, uniform in her underline, tremendously soft handle and fleece. When you set her in motion, I like the way that she gets about the ring. You park her, she's a little straight-legged for me, but I can tolerate that as long as she motors about the ring really well. Extremely good fronted, open ribbed, broody, sexy, good looking sheep is the ewe that we've got here in second. You park her, you love her, you set her in motion, you love her. If she wasn't scratchy mouth, I'd probably use her to win the class. Uniform fleece from front to rear, extremely, extremely dense. I like that about her. This ewe's got a big time future. I think she's gonna be really cool when it's all said and done. Probably the best fleeced ewe in the class. If it isn't 3, it's for sure 5. Extremely uniform from front to rear on the fine grade within the breed. Has one little spot that's a bit concerning, but I like the balance. I like the width of this ewe. I'd like to set her on a little more substance of bone to move her any higher in this class, but big, broody, capacious. She's got a bright future ahead of her. The ewe in fourth, dead sexy on the side profile. You can't lay a shoulder in any better. You can't make a forerib any better. You can't make a rear flank any better. She gets too short from flank to flank for me compared to the 3 placing her above, but her attractiveness, her structural correctness, and a great fit job presentation, we're going to use her in 4 today. I like the breed character. I like the fleece on the 5th place ewe. Really deep, really square, extremely long stapled, very dense. Probably one of the most uniform fleeces we've handled from shoulder to bridge today. When I set her in motion, she gets too close at her hocks to move her up any higher in this very competitive class. Had 3 ewes placed over here that I really liked the body, I like the mass, I like the grow that they had. But I'm a big feet and legs guy, and they just didn't pass that test for me, so they end up 6, 7, and 8.
Placing on the January ewe lamb class of the Columbia's first place to entry 72, Autumn Stiltman, Pine River, Minnesota, with Bauk 2432. Second place to entry 73, Ella Brown, Berthold, North Dakota, with Hendricks 24-11. Third place to 66, Addison Bussinger, Bluffton, Ohio. Fourth place to entry 69, Courtney Copeland, Lewistown, Ohio. 5 to 74, James Davis, Hinckley, Illinois. Sixth place to entry 67, Charles Worm, Lakefield, Minnesota. 7 to 70, Jackson Thiessen, Alden, Iowa. Eighth place to entry 68, Isaiah Bauk, New York Mills, Minnesota, 9-64, McCoy Thiessen, Sauk Center, Minnesota, and 10-65, Cooper Breedall, Berthold, North Dakota.
I think we got an easy place to start for me on the February ewe lambs. I really like this ewe when she hit the ring. And not only is she good when she's parked, she's really good when you get out and see her go. Extremely youthful in her kind, but her structure from the ground up would tell you there's a lot of good future coming. She's wide base, she's big bone, she's got enough cage on her for a February at this time. And then you open that fleece up, really fine in terms of the front side of the grade. Not maybe as big a lock size as you see in a Columbia on the normal time, but good enough. It certainly falls within standards. I like this female quite a bit. The ewe in second, I think, follows her very closely in type and kind. Big, roomy, got some depth, got some uniformity underline. Maybe not as good on tracking off her hind legs as we find in the ewe that precedes her in class, but I think she fits in second hole. Extremely complete, extremely bold ribbed, level topped, big square hipped ewe in third. I'd really like to move her up higher in the class if we could find that fleece up just a little bit. But it's uniform, it's good from top to bottom, free of belly wool. I like the pattern of that sheep a bunch. I think she's going to grow into a big old complete brood ewe that's going to have a good show career ahead of her. 4 and 5 are two females I like a bunch. If they could walk better on their hind wheels, I'd move them up higher in the class. They can't in my mind, but I like the growth, I like the depth, I like the fleece on these females. We're going to leave them in the top 5 in this class. They've got some very, very productive parts. Good class, February females on the Columbia side.
Placing on the February ewe lamb class for the Columbia's first place goes to entry 77, Charles Worm, Lakefield, Minnesota, with Worm 470. Second place to 83, Isaiah Bauk, New York Mills, Minnesota, with Bauk 2448. Third to 76, Nash Arthur, Greenfield, Indiana. Fourth place to entry 81, Isaiah Bauk, New York Mills, Minnesota. 5 to 82, Cashton Breedall, Berthold, North Dakota. 6 to 78, Courtney Copeland, Lewistown, Ohio. 7 to 84, Jackson Thiessen, Alden, Iowa. 8th place to 80, Addison Bussinger, Bluffton, Ohio. 9 to 79, McCoy Thiessen, Sauk Center, Minnesota. And 10 to entry 85, Monroe Groves, Asheville, Ohio.
leading off the March female class with probably one of the more correct females we've seen all day. I like the elevation, extension she has up through her front end, but more importantly, I like the way she opens up into her fore mid and rear rib. I like this hue a bunch from the side. I like her when you get your hands on her. There's a lot of thickness and capacity in this young female, and I think she has a very bright future ahead of her. The ewe in second's made a lot like her. Deep, square, bold in her rib, really soft in terms of her fleece from fore to rear. Doesn't come out of her neck-shoulder juncture as high or as right as we find in our class winner, but I really appreciate the additional capacity, depth, and mass that she brings to the table over 3, 4, and 5. The third place ewe is a really attractive female, probably as youthful as any in the class. A little bit shorter from flank to flank. I'm okay with that, but she's really deep and square in her rib, and probably, in my opinion, she handles herself very much nicer on her hind legs than does the ewe in fourth. Probably one of the biggest framed ewes that we've seen even in the January, February, and March classes is the ewe that we've got in fourth hole. Absolutely love her breed character, love her type and kind, maybe not so much her attitude, but she's really good in terms of her front three quarters. I falter and leave her fourth today because I just like to see her better off her hind wheels as she goes about the ring. A more moderate, later maturing ewe we've got here in fifth hole. The young ladies brought us a lot of good, productive sheep today. She's worked hard at this project. It's nice to see her jump into the top 5 today. Moving her up any higher, she just needs to be bigger in her outline, a little bit more pounds heavy for this class, a very competitive one of March females.
Placing on the March ewe lamb class for the Columbias, first place goes to entry 89, Isaiah Bauk, New York Mills, Minnesota, with Bauk 24.57. Second place to 88, Charles Worm, Lakefield, Minnesota, with Worm 4.75. Third place to 86, Charles Worm, Lakefield, Minnesota. Fourth to entry 87, Isaiah Bauk, New York Mills, Minnesota. And 5 to entry 90, Riley Schmidt, Butler, Missouri. Placing on the pair of ewe lambs for the Columbia Show, first place to entry 99, Isaiah Bauk, New York Mills, Minnesota. Second place to 94, Charles Worm, Lakefield, Minnesota. Third to 95, Addison Bussinger, Bluffton, Ohio. 4 to 93, Courtney Copeland, Lewistown, Ohio. 5 to 91, Morgan Davis, Hinckley, Illinois. Sixth place to 98, Jackson Thiessen, Alden, Iowa. Seventh place to 97, McCoy Thiessen, Sauk Center, Minnesota. And 8 to 92, Riley Schmidt, Butler, Missouri.
It's been fun to sort through these junior Columbia female classes. I commend the exhibitors for putting a lot of time and effort into this. Costs a lot of money to get down here, and they put a lot of work into getting these fleeces right and these sheep presented extremely well for me, and gotten into the ring quickly so we can move through them in an efficient manner. I got a pair that I like out here. I'm going to go show you what those two are, and then we'll bring the rest of them in for champion and reserve champion overall female.
Junior champion ewe goes to the first place January ewe lamb. Entry 72, Autumn Siltman, Pine River, Minnesota, with Bauk 24-32. Reserve champion was second in that January class. Entry 73, Ella Brown, Berthold, North Dakota, with Hendricks 24-11. Now showing for grand and reserve grand champion ewe.
I commend the Columbia breeders for bringing out a great set of sheep today. The quality here far exceeded what I was expecting. Not that to say that in a negative connotation. I just think the quality you brought me has been extremely, extremely deep in all these classes. I try to go with the tried and true deals, even though I really like those two junior champion females over there. I'm going to use your senior champions for champion and reserve overall. Two very nice females. I'm not saying that they're extremely similar in terms of type and kind, but I think that the components that they bring to the table can certainly propel this breed forward in the future. Congratulations to all the breeders.
Grand Champion U for the Columbia Show goes to our Senior Champion U, entry 43 out of the Yearling U class, Isaiah Bauk, New York Mills, Minnesota, Bauk 2347. The Reserve Grand Champion was our Reserve Senior Champion, second in that Yearling U class, entry 36, Ella Brown, Berthold, North Dakota, Hendricks 2156. Next class will be Columbia Best Fleece, Ram or U in this class of Best Fleece. Best fleece goes to Addison Bussinger, Bluffton, Ohio, with Thiessen 2406. Placing on the flock class, first in the flock and also the winner of the Premier Exhibitor Award is Isaiah Bauk, New York Mills, Minnesota. Second in the flock to Charles Worm, Lakefield, Minnesota. Third to Courtney Copeland, Lewistown, Ohio. And 4 to Riley Schmidt, Butler, Missouri. That does conclude our Columbia show. Our judge has been Rob Zielinski.